Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to becoming truly well-informed, especially in areas that touch our lives every single day, like the medicines we take. Have you ever picked up a prescription and genuinely paused, wondering what generic really means for you? Or, why some medications need a doctor's signature while others sit right on the pharmacy shelf?
Right. It's a common question.
Perhaps you've questioned the incredible journey a new drug takes to even reach the market. Or, I don't know, the dizzying array of names for what seems like the same compound.
Absolutely.
Today, we're not just answering those questions. We're diving into the absolute bedrock of drug knowledge.
And what's often overlooked, I think, is that pharmacology isn't just about what drugs do, but the intricate web of science and safeguards that ensure they do it safely and effectively. This deep dive is our exploration into the foundational principles that underpin every pill, every injection, every cream you encounter. Think of it as opening Pharmacology Chapter 1, a crucial text that lays out the essential framework of how we interact with these powerful chemical entities.
That's right. Our mission today is to unpack this intricate world, moving beyond the surface to reveal the hidden complexities and the why behind what we often take for granted. You'll walk away with a richer understanding of how drugs operate, how they're rigorously regulated, and why your safety is paramount at every single stage of a drug's life cycle. Okay, let's unpack this. Because beneath the straightforward label of a medicine bottle, there's a world full of surprising facts and critical insights.
Indeed. We're going to explore the framework that dictates not just the efficacy of drugs, but also the meticulous processes that guard against harm. Understanding this foundational chapter helps us grasp the deep commitment to patient well-being embedded in every aspect of medication use.
So let's start with the very core then. For those who appreciate the profound impact of medicine, what's often missed in the basic understanding of pharmacology that truly defines its kind of cutting-edge role in healthcare today, and how does that connect to what we call pharmacotherapy?
That's an excellent question because the terms, while often used interchangeably, represent distinct but interconnected ideas. Pharmacology, at its heart, is the scientific study of drugs. These are essentially chemicals and how they interact with and ultimately alter the functions of living organisms.
Okay.
It's the grand, overarching science that explains everything from a drug's molecular structure to its profound impact on a cellular pathway. But here's the real power of understanding it. It's not just about what a drug can do, but why it does it and the precise mechanisms involved.
So pharmacology is the scientific blueprint, the how it works part. What then is pharmacotherapy? Is that where the rubber meets the road?
Precisely. Pharmacotherapy, often referred to as drug therapy, is the practical application of that pharmacological science. It's the deliberate use of drugs to prevent, diagnose, or treat specific signs, symptoms, and underlying disease processes. And here's an important insight. The goal of this therapy isn't always a complete cure.
Ah, that's interesting.
Yeah, in many chronic conditions, the aim is symptom relief, which can dramatically improve a patient's quality of life and their ability to engage in daily activities. Think about managing chronic pain or diabetes. While a cure might be elusive, effective drug management offers a lifeline transforming daily existence.
That distinction is crucial. And it makes me think about how a drug's effect can be so targeted or so widespread. We often hear about local versus systemic effects. What's the fundamental difference there, and what does it mean for how drugs are designed and used?
Well, the distinction lies in where and how the drug exerts its primary action. Drugs with local effects are designed to act mainly at the site where they are applied. Consider a simple sunscreen lotion, protecting just the skin it covers, or a local anesthetic used by a dentist to numb a very specific area of your mouth. Their action is direct, contained, and intended to minimize effects elsewhere in the body.
So a contained, direct hit, essentially.
Yeah.
And systemic effects are the opposite. They go everywhere.
Exactly. Systemic effects are far more common, encompassing the majority of medications. These drugs are absorbed into the body, whether taken orally via injection or another route, and then circulate throughout the entire system via the bloodstream. They travel to various sites of action, potentially influencing multiple organs or systems before eventually being metabolized and eliminated. This journey through the body is what makes systemic drugs so powerful, but also why they carry a broader range of potential effects, both therapeutic and adverse.
It's incredible how that same chemical can have such diverse impacts depending on its journey. And these drugs aren't just for life-threatening illnesses. They really span the entire spectrum of human needs, don't they? From a headache to
Yeah.
something really serious.
They absolutely do. Pharmacology offers solutions for immediate acute disorders, like rapidly managing sudden severe pain or fighting off a bacterial infection.
Right.
But it's equally indispensable for relieving the chronic signs and symptoms of long-term diseases, such as hypertension, asthma, or autoimmune conditions that require continuous management. This broad scope highlights the versatility and pervasive role of pharmacotherapy in maintaining and restoring health across almost every aspect of medicine.
And for anyone, whether you're a patient, a caregiver, or even considering a career in healthcare, it's vital to recognize that these academic principles aren't just theoretical. The source material emphasizes how contemporary nursing guidelines, for instance, heavily focus on safety in pharmacotherapy.
Right.
So every time you encounter a healthcare professional administering medication, you're witnessing these principles in action, all designed with your safety as the ultimate priority.
That direct link to patient care is paramount. Nurses, in particular, are at the front line of medication administration, and their deep understanding of these foundational concepts is critical. It's about building a robust safety culture, right from the most basic definition to the most complex drug interaction. Hashtag, where do our medicines come from? The evolution of drug sources.
Okay, so we understand what drugs are and how they work, basically. But the story of how they even get to us, evolving from ancient remedies to genetic engineering, well, that's a deep dive in itself. Historically, where did we even begin to find these powerful compounds? Like thousands of years ago.
Well, our journey into medicine began with what was immediately available, nature. Historically, drugs were primarily derived from plants, animals, and minerals.
Like herbs and things.
Exactly. Think of ancient civilizations using willow bark for pain relief, which we now know contains salicylates, precursors to aspirin, or the early discovery of insulin from animal pancreases. Even minerals like sulfur and iron had their place in traditional medicine. These natural sources provided the initial, often serendipitous understanding that certain compounds could profoundly affect the human body.
It's fascinating to trace that lineage. But the modern medicine cabinet looks very different from an ancient herbalist's pouch. The vast majority of drugs today are not directly plucked from nature, are they?
That's right. The modern era is overwhelmingly dominated by synthetic compounds, manufactured in sophisticated laboratories. This shift was revolutionary. It allowed chemists not just to isolate active ingredients from natural sources, but to actively design, create, and modify chemical structures.
Wow.
They could take an existing compound, alter it slightly, and potentially create a new drug with improved efficacy, fewer side effects, or maybe a longer duration of action.
And the benefits of that synthetic approach are quite significant, I imagine. Consistency must be key.
Enormously so. Synthetic drugs offer crucial advantages. They have more standardized chemical characteristics, ensuring consistent effects batch after batch.
Right.
They're also generally less likely to produce allergic reactions compared to some naturally derived substances, and their production can be scaled up to meet global demand reliably. We also have a fascinating hybrid, semi-synthetic drugs.
Okay, what are those?
These start as naturally occurring substances, but are then chemically modified in the lab. Many antibiotics, like amoxicillin, fall into this category, leveraging natural compounds while enhancing their properties.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. The idea of essentially programming organisms to produce our medicines almost sounds like science fiction, yet it's very real in reshaping drug development. Can you unpack how this groundbreaking biotechnology actually works?
Yeah, biotechnology is truly the cutting edge, transforming how we conceive of drug sources. It involves the meticulous manipulation of deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA, and ribonucleic acid, RNA, the very building blocks of life. Scientists can literally recombine genes into what we call hybrid molecules. These carefully engineered hybrid molecules are then inserted into living organisms, often common Escherichia coli bacteria, which act as tiny, sophisticated factories.
So we're taking a piece of genetic code and instructing bacteria to essentially read it and produce something specific, like a protein or something.
Precisely. The incredible aspect is that these organisms then reproduce repeatedly, and each time they create genetically identical clones, complete with the inserted hybrid molecule. This cloning process allows scientists to pinpoint a specific DNA sequence in a gene and then compel the organism to produce the protein product encoded by that gene.
That's an elegant solution for large-scale production. What are the key applications we're seeing from this? I know insulin is a big one.
A prime life-changing example is human insulin. Before biotechnology, insulin was primarily sourced from animals, which could cause allergic reactions in some patients.
Right, I remember hearing about that.
Now, thanks to genetic engineering, E. coli bacteria can reliably produce human insulin identical to what our bodies make, revolutionizing diabetes treatment. This technology also allows us to generate substantial amounts of drugs for both therapeutic use and further research, vastly accelerating discovery.
So this isn't just a niche thing.
Oh no. The truly impactful insight here is that biotechnology drugs are not just a trend. They're projected to represent an increasingly significant percentage of new drug development in the coming decades, offering unprecedented precision and efficacy in medicine. It's a huge part of the future.
That's incredible, the shift from natural remedies to synthetic compounds and now to programming bacteria. But once we have these powerful new drugs, how do we make sense of the sheer volume? The landscape of medications is vast and complex. How are they classified? And what's this concept of a prototype drug?
It's an essential challenge, bringing order to what could otherwise be chaos. Drugs are classified using several criteria, which often overlap. We classify them by their effects on particular body systems. For example, a drug might be a central nervous system depressant, or by their therapeutic uses, such as an antidepressant, an antihypertensive, or an opioid analgesic. And sometimes by their chemical characteristics like adrenergics or benzodiazepines, which describes their molecular structure or how they interact at a cellular level.
It makes sense that many drugs could fit into multiple categories, and given their wide-ranging effects, they don't just do one thing often.
Absolutely. Many drugs, due to their complex mechanisms of action, have effects on more than one body system or can be used for different therapeutic purposes, so they'll legitimately fall into several classification groups. This inherent overlap is a key point to understand. It's not always neat boxes.
And this leads us to the prototype drug concept, which you've mentioned is truly fundamental for learning pharmacology. What makes it so important? Why focus on one drug in a class?
The prototype drug concept is a pedagogical superpower, really. A prototype is an individual drug that represents an entire group of drugs. It's often the first drug in its class to be developed, and crucially, it serves as the standard against which all newer, similar drugs are compared. Think of morphine, which is the prototype for opioid analgesics, or penicillin, the prototype for beta-lactam antibacterial drugs.
So what does this all mean for you as a learner or even an informed patient? If you truly grasp the prototype, you've essentially unlocked the basic understanding of dozens of related drugs, allowing you to quickly anticipate potential interactions or side effects, even with a new prescription you encounter. It's like having a master key for an entire family of medications.
That's a perfect analogy. By understanding the prototype, you gain a foundational framework, streamlining the learning process and enabling you to predict therapeutic and adverse effects for other drugs in that class.
That seems really useful.
It is. Now, while most new drugs can be assigned to a group and compared with a recognized prototype, it's worth noting that this field is dynamic. Some groups may lack a universally accepted prototype, and even established prototypes can be replaced over time by more commonly used or impactful drugs as medical understanding evolves.
That's a profound shortcut for understanding a vast array of medications. Now let's tackle something that causes a lot of confusion for patients. Drug names. Why do drugs often have so many different names? Generic, brand, trade. What's the difference, and why does this distinction carry significant implications for safety?
Oh, this is a critical area for patient safety and clarity. Each individual drug can indeed have several names, but the two most commonly encountered are the generic or official name and the brand or trade name.
Okay, generic first.
The generic name is the chemical or official name, for example, amoxicillin. It's independent of the manufacturer and often provides a clue about the drug's group. Drugs ending in "cillin," for instance, are typically penicillins. In the U.S., the United States Adopted Names Council assigns this name, and in most drug literature, you'll see generic names presented in lowercase, unless it's at the start of a sentence or in a list.
So the generic name is like a drug's official universal identity, recognized by everyone, regardless of who produces it. What about the brand or trade name, the one you see advertised?
The brand or trade name is the proprietary name chosen by the manufacturer, and it's protected by a patent. So while amoxicillin is the generic name, different pharmaceutical companies might market it under their own brand names, such as Amoxil or Larotid. You'll always see brand names capitalized in drug literature.
And this is where generic equivalents come in, often touted as less expensive. But are they truly identical? That's the big question, right?
Yes, generic equivalents are available for the vast majority of drugs once the brand name patent expires, and they are indeed generally less expensive. Crucially, they are legally and therapeutically required to be equivalent to their trade-named counterparts.
Equivalent means,
It means they must contain the same active ingredient in the same dosage form and strength, and be absorbed into the bloodstream at the same rate and extent as the brand name drug.
okay, so scientifically, they should work the same way.
Correct. Unless a prescriber explicitly writes "do not substitute" on the prescription, a generic version can typically be substituted, offering patients a cost-effective alternative without compromising efficacy.
This raises an important question, especially highlighted in the QSN alert from our source material. The sheer volume of generic versus brand names isn't just a matter of convenience. It represents a constant active battleground against human error. Why is this critical?
It's absolutely critical. The QSing alert underscores that the existence of multiple names for the same drug generic versus various trade names can dramatically increase confusion and the risk of medication misuse.
How so?
Well, imagine a patient receiving a prescription for amoxicillin, but only recognizing Amoxil from past experience. This discrepancy can lead to them either taking too much medication, thinking they're taking a different drug,
Or not taking it at all.
or, just as dangerously, not taking it at all because they don't recognize the name or think it's not what they need. A misplaced decimal, a half-remembered name, or a hasty glance at a label could have fatal consequences. This makes label vigilance paramount for everyone involved, from the pharmacist dispensing to you, the patient taking the medication. It's a huge safety focus. Hashtag the business and science of drug use.
It makes you realize how many layers of thought go into something as seemingly simple as a medicine label, and how important the financial incentives are behind all of this. Speaking of manufacturers, let's talk about the business side. How do drug companies recoup the massive investments they make in developing new drugs, which can take, what, a decade and billions of dollars?
Yeah, the investment is enormous, and that's where patent protection becomes central to the pharmaceutical business model. When a new drug is developed, it's granted patent protection for a significant number of years, often 20 years from the date of filing the patent application, though the effective market exclusivity period is typically shorter due to the lengthy approval process.
Right, because testing takes so long.
Exactly. This patent gives the developing manufacturer exclusive marketing rights during that period.
So it's not just a reward for their research, but a crucial incentive for future innovation, ensuring they can get a return on those monumental investments. Otherwise, why bother?
Precisely. Without this period of exclusivity, other companies could immediately replicate the drug, eliminating the incentive for the arduous, risky, and expensive research and development that leads to medical breakthroughs. Only after the patent expires can other companies step in to produce generic versions.
And that's when prices usually drop.
Typically, yes. This competition then often drives down prices and increases accessibility, but the initial patent period is vital for fostering innovation.
The incredible investment, the years of research, and the patent protection all point to one thing: the immense financial stakes involved. And that leads us directly to a field dedicated to analyzing these costs: pharmacoeconomics. This isn't just about hospital budgets, is it? It directly influences which life-saving treatments are available and affordable to you.
Absolutely. Pharmacoeconomics is a specialized field that involves rigorously analyzing the entire cost spectrum of drug therapy. This isn't just the sticker price of the drug itself, but every associated expense.
Like what?
Well, the costs of purchasing, dispensing, including the salaries of pharmacists and technicians, storage and administration, like nurse salaries and supplies. It also factors in the costs of monitoring a patient's response, such as lab tests, and often extends to what we might call hidden costs.
What are some of those less obvious costs you mentioned? Expired drugs?
Things like losses due to drug expiration, yes, but also the economic impact of adverse drug reactions and even the broader financial consequences on a patient's length of illness or hospitalization.
Does the total cost of care, really?
Exactly. The ultimate goal of pharmacoeconomic research is to identify drug therapy regimens that not only provide the desired therapeutic benefits to the patient, but do so at the lowest possible overall cost, making healthcare systems more efficient and treatments more sustainable and accessible. It's a huge balancing act.
That's a critical big-picture perspective. And moving from the economic to the deeply personal, we have pharmacogenomics. This sounds like the ultimate in personalized medicine, literally tailoring treatment to our individual genetic makeup. Is that what it is?
Pharmacogenomics, sometimes referred to as pharmacogenetics, is a truly revolutionary field positioned at the intersection of pharmacology and genetics. It's the study of how a person's unique genetic inheritance affects their body's response to drugs.
How so?
What's fascinating here is that our genes can influence everything from how quickly we metabolize a drug to whether it will be effective or cause adverse reactions.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Here.
imagine a near future where a simple genetic test, perhaps a cheek swab, could determine not just if a specific medication will work for you, but the exact dose to maximize its benefit and bypass adverse reactions. That's the revolutionary promise pharmacogenomics is rapidly making a reality.
That future is rapidly approaching. Since virtually all diseases and conditions have some genetic or genomic component, integrating this information into prevention, screening, diagnosis, and treatment significantly enhances the likelihood of best practice in drug therapy.
So fewer side effects, better results.
Potentially, yes. This isn't just about tweaking dosages. It's about potentially avoiding ineffective drugs, preventing severe adverse reactions, and ultimately delivering more precise, effective, and safer care, all tailored specifically to your unique genetic blueprint. This is truly pushing the boundaries toward highly individualized medicine.
That's an incredibly exciting prospect for the future. But before we get to that fully personalized future, we need to talk about how drugs are currently regulated and approved. There's a monumental system in place to ensure both safety and access. Let's start with how we actually get drugs prescription versus over-the-counter. What's the fundamental difference in responsibility there?
Right. Legally, American consumers access therapeutic drugs through two primary channels. Prescription drugs require a written order from a licensed healthcare provider, a physician, dentist, nurse practitioner, or another authorized professional.
Okay.
It's crucial to understand that acquiring and using these drugs for non-therapeutic purposes or without authorization is illegal, precisely because of their potency and potential for harm. Then we have over-the-counter, or OTC, drugs, which can be purchased directly without a prescription.
And with OTC drugs, the consumer takes on a considerably greater burden of responsibility, don't they? You're kind of your own doctor in that moment.
Absolutely. With OTC drugs, the consumer essentially takes on the role of self-diagnosing their condition and making their own treatment decisions, often without direct professional consultation. This shifts the decision-making burden and responsibility for safe and effective use squarely onto the individual.
The history of American drug laws is really a history of the government stepping in to protect the public, often after something bad happened, right? What are the seminal acts and amendments that have shaped this incredibly complex regulatory landscape?
Yeah, often regulation follows tragedy, unfortunately. The main goal from the very beginning has been to protect the public by ensuring that all drugs marketed for therapeutic purposes are both safe and effective. A foundational piece of legislation, truly transformative, was the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938.
What did that do?
This act introduced comprehensive regulations covering the manufacture, distribution, advertising, and labeling of drugs. Crucially, it required that all official drugs, those listed in the United States Pharmacopoeia, meet stringent standards of purity and strength, moving beyond a simple truth in labeling to actual quality control.
And then the Durham-Humphrey Amendment came along, specifically to delineate the prescription boundary, to draw that line between prescription and OTC.
Yes, the Durham-Humphrey Amendment was enacted in 1951 to clarify a critical distinction. It specifically designated which drugs require a prescription from a licensed professional and must be dispensed by a pharmacist. This amendment was pivotal in defining the roles and responsibilities for prescription medications, creating the two-tiered system we largely recognize today.
So who are the main regulatory bodies tasked with enforcing these comprehensive laws? We always hear about the FDA.
The primary enforcer is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, which is charged with enforcing the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Beyond that, the Public Health Service regulates vaccines and other biologic products, ensuring their safety and efficacy. And the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, plays a crucial role in preventing false or misleading advertisements for non-prescription drugs, making sure consumers aren't deceived. It's a multi-layered regulatory system.
Gotcha. Okay, another absolutely critical piece of legislation is the Controlled Substances Act of 1970. This one sounds like it's specifically designed to manage drugs with higher risks, especially regarding abuse potential. What were its main objectives?
It absolutely is. The Controlled Substances Act was enacted to regulate the manufacture and distribution of drugs deemed to have a high potential for abuse, including narcotics, stimulants, depressants, hallucinogens, and anabolic steroids.
So the stronger stuff.
Right. Its core purpose is to impose strict requirements on the pharmaceutical industry, mandating robust physical security measures for these drugs and meticulous record keeping to track their every movement. Prevent diversion, basically.
And this act categorizes these substances into schedules based on their potential for abuse. Can you walk us through what those schedules actually mean in practice, like Schedule I versus Schedule V?
Of course. The drugs are categorized into 5 schedules, I through V, based on their therapeutic usefulness and, critically, their potential for abuse and dependence.
Okay, Schedule 1.
Schedule 1 drugs are the most tightly restricted, representing the highest risk. They have no currently accepted medical use in the United States, lack accepted safety for use under medical supervision, and possess a very high potential for abuse. Examples include heroin, LSD, MDMA, ecstasy, mescaline, and peyote. Their legal status is almost entirely for research purposes, under very strict controls.
Right. And Schedule 2.
Schedule 2 drugs do have accepted medical uses, but they still carry a high potential for abuse, and abuse may lead to severe psychological or physical dependence. This schedule includes many powerful opioid analgesics like codeine, morphine, oxycodone, and fentanyl, central nervous system stimulants like cocaine, methamphetamine, and Adderall, and certain barbiturate sedative hypnotics.
So common prescriptions, but high risk.
Yes. And a key practical implication here is that prescriptions for Schedule 2 drugs cannot be refilled. A new prescription is required for each dispensing, reflecting their high risk.
Oh, okay. Schedule 3.
Schedule 3 drugs have less potential for abuse than those in Schedules 1 and 2, but abuse may still lead to moderate to low physical dependence or high psychological dependence. This includes substances like androgens, for example, testosterone, anabolic steroids, ketamine, and mixtures containing smaller amounts of controlled substances, like certain codeine combinations or some barbiturate mixtures. They all have accepted medical uses.
Schedule 4. Getting less risky.
Schedule 4 drugs have accepted medical uses and a lower potential for abuse relative to Schedule 3. Examples include benzodiazepines like diazepam, Valium, and lorazepam, Ativan, along with phenobarbital and some prescription appetite suppressants. While they have a lower abuse potential, misuse can still lead to dependence.
And finally, Schedule V.
Schedule V products contain relatively moderate amounts of controlled substances, generally with the lowest abuse potential among the scheduled drugs. These may even be dispensed by a pharmacist without a physician's prescription in some states, but with specific restrictions regarding quantity and meticulous record keeping. Examples include certain cough suppressants with small amounts of codeine and antidiarrheal drugs like diphenoxylate and atropine.
That's a very clear breakdown. And the implications for refilling alone highlight the strict control. And the enforcement of this act falls to a specific agency, doesn't it? The DEA.
Yes. The Drug Enforcement Administration, or DEA, is the federal agency tasked with enforcing the Controlled Substances Act. Anyone legally empowered to handle controlled substances, whether individual prescribers, pharmacies, or pharmaceutical companies, must register with the DEA. They are mandated to maintain accurate records of all transactions involving these drugs and provide secure storage to prevent diversion. Furthermore, prescribers are assigned a unique DEA number, which must be included on all prescriptions they write for a controlled substance, serving as a critical audit trail.
And nurses, being at the bedside, have a very direct, hands-on responsibility in managing these medications, don't they? It's not just the doctor and pharmacist.
They absolutely do, and their diligence is paramount for patient safety and preventing diversion. Nurses are meticulously responsible for storing controlled substances in locked containers, administering them only to the specific individuals for whom they are prescribed, and then meticulously recording each dose given on agency narcotic sheets and the patient's medication administration record.
Lots of checks and balances.
Yes. They must also maintain an accurate inventory and promptly report any discrepancies to the proper authorities. This level of accountability is a cornerstone of safe medication practice.
It's also worth highlighting how these regulations intersect with current public health challenges, especially given the opioid crisis. The source mentions medication-assisted treatment, or MAT, in this context. What's that about?
Indeed. MAT involves the use of FDA-approved medications like methadone or buprenorphine in combination with counseling and behavioral therapies to treat substance use disorders, particularly opioid use disorder.
Mhm.
It's a crucial whole-patient approach that directly addresses challenges like the opioid crisis, aiming for sustained recovery. Initiatives like the Support Act further bolster this by helping states improve data sharing and implement safe care plans. It's a recognized standard of care now.
And just to clarify, state laws can sometimes be different from federal laws when it comes to controlled substances.
Right.
Which one takes precedence? Is it always the federal law?
No, state laws can indeed be more stringent than federal laws. In such cases, the stricter law usually applies, creating a complex but ultimately more protective regulatory environment. This means healthcare providers and patients must be aware of both federal and state-specific regulations.
Good to know. Now let's talk about the absolute rigor involved in getting a new drug to market. The FDA's role here is crucial, ensuring drugs are safe and effective, but it's important to clarify. The FDA reviews research. They don't actually conduct the testing themselves, do they?
That's a common misconception, and it's a vital distinction. The FDA's primary role is to ensure that new drugs are rigorously proven safe and effective before they are approved for marketing to the public. They achieve this by meticulously reviewing the extensive research studies and clinical trials, which are typically conducted or sponsored by pharmaceutical companies themselves, rather than performing the testing in their own labs. This independent oversight is critical for public trust.
Okay, let's dive into that testing procedure, because it's an extensive multi-phase process that's been in place since 1962, representing a monumental investment of time and resources. What does this journey from an idea to a prescription bottle actually look like?
It is indeed a lengthy and incredibly rigorous journey, typically spanning 10 to 15 years and costing billions of dollars per successful drug. It proceeds through several distinct phases, contingent on continuous evidence of safety and effectiveness at each stage.
Start small. Right.
Yes. It begins with preclinical testing, mainly in animals, to look at basic safety and biological activity. Then, if that looks promising, it moves to humans. Phase 0 is an exploratory, very early phase, involving initial testing in tiny doses in just a few humans. The FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, or CDR, reviews these preliminary results to assess the compound's basic pharmacology and potential for further human testing.
And then we move into the actual human clinical trials, which are highly structured and designed to eliminate bias, phase 1.
Exactly. These subsequent phases 1 through 3, involve highly controlled experimental designs. Subjects are carefully selected based on established criteria, randomly assigned to experimental groups, and either receive the test drug or control substance, which could be a placebo or an existing treatment.
So phase 1 is about safety mostly.
Primarily, yes. In phase 1, a small number of healthy volunteers, typically 20-100, are given a few doses of the drug. The main goal here is to determine safe dosages, assess different routes of administration, and understand basic pharmacokinetics, how the drug is absorbed, metabolized, and excreted, while also identifying any acute toxicities. This phase is all about safety and basic human response.
Okay, then phase 2, does it actually work?
That's the focus. Phase 2 involves administering the drug to a specific number of subjects, usually a few hundred, who actually have the disease or symptom for which the drug is being studied. Their responses are meticulously compared with those of healthy subjects from phase 1 and often against a placebo or standard treatment. This phase focuses on efficacy and initial dose ranging, confirming the drug has a positive effect on the target condition and figuring out the right dose range.
Yeah, phase 3 is the big one. Lots of people.
Phase 3 is the largest and most complex, involving hundreds to thousands of diverse patients. Here, the drug is tested at different dosages, often in combination with other medications, and across various patient demographics. This phase frequently employs double-blind, placebo-controlled designs.
Meaning nobody knows who gets what.
Exactly. Neither the subjects nor the researchers know who is receiving the actual drug and who is receiving an inert placebo, minimizing bias. Crossover studies are also common, where subjects serve as their own control. These extensive studies are critical for definitively determining if the potential benefits of the drug truly outweigh the risks across a broad population.
And they can stop it early if it looks bad.
Oh, yes. It's important to note that testing can be stopped during any of these early phases if issues of inadequate effectiveness or unacceptable toxicity become evident, saving further investment in a non-viable compound. Safety is constantly monitored.
So even after a drug is approved and makes it to market, the scrutiny doesn't entirely stop, does it? There's a phase 4.
That's where phase 4, or post-marketing surveillance, becomes crucial. Once the FDA grants approval and the drug is marketed, manufacturers are still required to continue monitoring and electronically reporting on the drug's safety and effectiveness. This ongoing surveillance is vital for identifying less common but serious adverse effects that may only become apparent when the drug is used by a very large and diverse population in real-world settings. This phase truly highlights the dynamic nature of drug safety learning continues even after approval.
It's also worth noting that drug research historically involved a very specific demographic, which led to significant gaps in our understanding. The source highlights a really important legislative change, the inclusion of women and minorities in clinical trials. How did that come about, and what was its impact?
Yes, historically, drug research was disproportionately conducted on young, white males. This bias meant that data on how drugs affected women, older adults, and various ethnic and racial groups was severely lacking.
Which could be really dangerous.
Absolutely. It could lead to potential underdosing, overdosing, or unpredicted adverse effects in these populations. This began to change dramatically with the National Institutes of Health, or NIH Revitalization Act of 1993. This act formalized a groundbreaking policy requiring the inclusion of women and minorities in all NIH-funded human subject research and clinical trials, ensuring greater representation.
And the impact of that policy has been profound, I imagine, filling in those critical knowledge gaps. We know more now.
Absolutely. This policy has led to a significant increase in our knowledge about drug effects in women and diverse populations. Now, all newly developed drugs must include gender-related effectiveness and safety information in their initial FDA application, directly addressing past deficiencies.
But maybe not for older drugs.
That's the caveat. While knowledge has certainly grown and is continually being refined, it's also acknowledged that historical data gaps still exist for many older drugs that were developed and approved before these vital regulations were put in place. This is an ongoing area of research and refinement in pharmacology.
So even with all this rigorous testing and comprehensive post-market surveillance, drugs can still be withdrawn from the market after they've been approved. That must be incredibly unsettling for patients and prescribers. Why does that happen?
It is, and it underscores the inherent complexity of drug safety. Drug withdrawals do occur, usually because serious adverse effects that were either rare or unique to certain subpopulations only become evident when the drugs are used by a large, diverse population once they are on the market.
Things you just couldn't see in the trials.
Exactly. This truly highlights the importance of that Phase 4 post-marketing surveillance. The FDA also issues black box warnings, or BBWs, which are the agency's strongest warnings for serious adverse effects. These appear prominently on drug labels, package inserts, and all marketing literature.
And these black box warnings are not to be taken lightly. They're meant to grab immediate attention for very serious risks, right? Like potentially fatal risks.
Precisely. They are the highest level safety alert the FDA can mandate for prescription drugs and are absolutely critical for patient safety, informing both prescribers and patients of potentially life-threatening risks. Furthermore, an independent assessment by the Institute of Medicine in 2006 identified significant deficiencies in the FDA's drug safety system and made comprehensive recommendations for improvements in risk assessment, surveillance, and safe drug use, leading to ongoing efforts to continually refine and strengthen these processes. It's a constant evolution.
Now let's look at another important shift, the transfer of drugs from prescription to over-the-counter status. What does that process entail? And what are the profound implications for consumers, moving the responsibility from professional hands to personal choice?
This is a significant regulatory decision, and the FDA's CDER is also responsible for approving these switches. With prescription drugs, a healthcare professional typically diagnoses the condition, often utilizing diagnostic tests, and carefully determines the need for the drug, its appropriate dosage, and monitoring. When a drug transitions to OTC status, the consumer takes on the primary responsibility of self-diagnosing their condition and making their own treatment decisions, either with or without professional consultation.
So the FDA might require additional clinical trials to ensure the drug is safe and effective enough for consumers to use without a prescription, relying solely on package instructions. They need to be sure people can use it safely on their own.
Yes, that's often the case. The switch might also involve different indications for use or lower dosages than the prescription version to ensure a wider safety margin for self-medication.
Ah, okay.
The fundamental implication is that primary responsibility for safe and effective drug therapy shifts from healthcare professionals to consumers, relying heavily on the comprehensive information provided on the product label for safe and appropriate use.
This sounds like a mixed bag for consumers, offering both new freedoms and new responsibilities. What are the key advantages and disadvantages a patient should be aware of when grabbing something off the shelf?
There are indeed clear pros and cons that directly impact the consumer. On the advantage side, consumers gain greater autonomy over their health, faster and more convenient access to effective treatment, and potentially an earlier resumption of daily activities.
Makes sense.
It can also lead to fewer visits to healthcare providers and an increased incentive for consumers to actively learn about their symptoms and conditions. However, the disadvantages are significant and require careful consideration.
Like what? Misdiagnosing yourself.
Exactly. These include the risk of inaccurate self-diagnosis, the potential for choosing the wrong drug or one that is contraindicated for their specific health issues, and critically, a delayed professional diagnosis and treatment if the underlying condition is serious.
That's a big one.
It is. There's also an increased risk of adverse drug reactions or interactions if consumers are taking multiple OTCs or combining them with prescription medications without professional guidance.
And there's a clear economic impact here too, isn't there, for all parties involved?
Yeah.
Who pays when it goes OTC?
Absolutely. From a business perspective, when a drug switches from prescription to OTC, sales and profits for pharmaceutical companies typically increase significantly due to wider market access.
Okay.
For insurance companies, there can be decreased costs because they cover fewer prescription drugs. However, for consumers, while the individual purchase might seem cheaper, overall costs can increase because most OTC drugs are not covered by health insurance, shifting the financial burden directly to the patient. You pay out of pocket.
That's a lot to consider as a consumer, highlighting the complex dance between access, responsibility, and cost. But the safeguards don't stop at the regulatory and economic levels. Let's talk about what happens at the very point of care when a medication is actually administered, say, in a hospital or clinic. The statistics on preventable adverse drug events are pretty sobering, aren't they?
They are, and they underscore why the systems at the point of care are so critical. Our source highlights that estimates suggest over 7 million preventable adverse drug events occur in the healthcare system annually, costing over $21 billion.
Wow. Preventable ones.
Yes, preventable. These aren't just numbers. They represent real harm to patients. This sobering reality absolutely underscores why safeguards must be robust at every level, right down to the precise moment a medication is given.
And the bedrock of patient safety at that point of care, particularly for healthcare professionals like nurses, are what we call the rights of medication administration. There used to be 5, now there are more.
That's right. The list has expanded over time. Traditionally, it was 5, but now it's often cited as 10 or more. The core ones are ensuring the right drug is given in the right dose to the right patient via the right route at the right time for the right reason.
Those seem fundamental. What else?
Beyond these initial 6, we also have the right documentation recording it accurately, right patient education, making sure the patient understands, right evaluation of the drug's effects, did it work, any side effects, and crucially, the patient's right to refuse medication.
Right, patients have autonomy.
Absolutely. And while these rights traditionally focused on the nurse's individual actions, here's a crucial insight. The discussion has significantly expanded to include the entire system in which medication administration takes place, recognizing that individual errors often stem from systemic issues and environmental factors. It's not always just one person's fault.
That's a crucial distinction. It's not just about an individual mistake, but about the environment and processes that can enable or prevent errors. The source even brings up a tragic example to illustrate these systemic issues and the profound lessons learned. Can you share that?
Yes, it refers to a harrowing case where a nurse mistakenly administered epidural pain medication intravenously to a pregnant woman, tragically leading to her death. This devastating incident and the subsequent investigation didn't just point to an individual error.
Right.
It highlighted critical system gaps and process failures within the organization, revealing deficiencies in medication and safety procedures, staffing patterns, leadership oversight, and the prevailing institutional culture.
So instead of just blaming an individual, they conducted what's called a root cause analysis to figure out what went wrong beyond just the immediate action to fix the system.
Exactly. A root cause analysis delves deep into the underlying factors that contributed to the error, looking at the entire chain of events and influences. This led to a range of enhanced safety initiatives such as comprehensive team training for staff, consistent procedures for barcode scanning adherence, which is a critical technology, and streamlining those barcode scanning tracking systems for medications. These measures are designed to build robust safety nets and fail-safe mechanisms directly into the system itself, minimizing the potential for human error.
And technology, while offering incredible advancements in safety, also introduces its own layer of new complexities, doesn't it? Our source mentions this directly with the QSN alert. It's not a magic bullet.
It certainly isn't. Electronic charting, automated drug dispensing systems, and barcode medication administration are all powerful tools, but they require enhanced nursing skills to manage these complex systems effectively. The QSN alert rightly points out that these technologies can introduce new types of errors if not implemented and managed carefully. Furthermore, environmental factors like distracting environments, frequent interruptions during medication preparation, and extended nursing shifts can all contribute significantly to unintended consequences and unfortunately heighten the risk of errors even with the best technology in place.
So what are some of the specific practical strategies that healthcare facilities are implementing right now to actively reduce these errors, addressing both human factors and system design, things nurses actually do?
Many proactive strategies are now being implemented. These include establishing designated quiet zones for medication preparation, often with visible quiet zone signs at medication room entrances or above automated dispensing systems to signal to others that focus is paramount.
Makes sense.
Strict adherence to established protocols and checklists is also key. Some facilities even have nurses wear sashes or vests that clearly signal "do not interrupt" during medication administration rounds.
Oh, interesting.
Educating all staff to recognize and reduce unnecessary interruptions and ensuring readily available up-to-date drug guides are also crucial components. Little things that add up.
This all sounds like a massive ongoing effort to improve safety at every step. Are there national initiatives guiding this push for safer medication administration?
Absolutely. Multiple national strategies have been implemented, largely spurred by the seminal work of the Institute of Medicine back in 2000, which dramatically brought the breadth of preventable medical errors in the United States to the forefront of public and professional awareness.
Right, that to err is human report.
Exactly. That led to widespread improvements in system design, operation, and usability, shifting the focus towards human factors engineering and optimizing workflow to make it harder for errors to occur.
And the Quality and Safety Education for Nurses, or QAC project, sounds like a big part of training the next generation of healthcare professionals in these critical safety principles, right from their education, baking in from the start.
QSEN is indeed a crucial initiative. Sponsored by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, its overarching goal is continuous improvement in the quality and safety of healthcare systems. It focuses on developing specific knowledge, skills, and attitudes, or KSAs, in future nurses across 6 key competency areas: patient-centered care, teamwork and collaboration, evidence-based practice, quality improvement, safety, and informatics. These competencies are rigorously integrated into nursing education curricula to ensure that safety isn't just a concept, but an ingrained practice for every graduating nurse.
The Joint Commission, another vital organization that accredits healthcare organizations, also has national patient safety goals that directly address medication safety. What's on their critical do not use list of abbreviations? Why are some abbreviations so dangerous?
The Joint Commission is instrumental in setting safety standards. Following a Sentinel event alert in 2001 highlighting the dangers of certain medical abbreviations, they developed a standardized do not use list. This list strictly prohibits specific abbreviations, acronyms, dose designations, and symbols in healthcare settings because they are common sources of medication error.
Like which ones?
For example, U for unit can easily be mistaken for a 0 or the number 4, leading to a 10-fold dosing error. IU for international unit can be misread as IV, intravenous, or 10. QD for daily can be confused with QID, 4 times daily, causing dangerous overdoses. CC for cubic centimeter can be mistaken for U units, again leading to significant dosing errors. And trailing zeros, like writing 1.0 milligrams, can be critically misinterpreted as 10 milligrams if the decimal point is missed. Also, lacking a leading zero, like writing 0.5 milligrams instead of 0.5 milligrams, can lead to errors. So standardizing notation is absolutely vital.
That's incredibly important. The rationale behind each one makes perfect sense once you hear it, illustrating how subtle changes can lead to big problems. What about other targeted high-risk activities they focus on? like labeling.
The Joint Commission also mandates performance measures related to safety in other high-risk drug administration activities. For instance, in perioperative and other procedural settings, all medications and solutions transferred from their original packaging, say, into syringes, cups, or basins, must be clearly labeled immediately. This directly addresses a critical risk point where medications can easily be confused in a fast-paced environment.
Makes sense.
They also require healthcare facilities to have defined processes for managing anticoagulant therapy drugs like heparin or warfarin to ensure patient safety, including standardized ordering, dispensing, administration, and continuous monitoring, given the high risk of bleeding complications with those drugs.
And then we have high alert medications, identified by the Institute for Safe Medication Practices, or ISMP. These aren't just any drugs, these are the ones that demand extreme vigilance, and for good reason. What makes a medication high alert, and what strategies are employed to manage them?
Exactly. High alert medications are drugs that, when used in error, have a significantly heightened risk of causing serious patient harm, even death. They are inherently powerful and often have a narrow therapeutic window, meaning the line between effective dose and toxic dose is very thin.
Okay.
To mitigate the chance of errors with these, a layered approach is crucial. Implementing automatic alerts in electronic systems, utilizing automated dispensing devices, integrating barcodes at every step, using computerized physician order entry, providing readily available point-of-care drug resources, and rigorous process standardization are all critical strategies. Double checks are often required.
Can you give us a few prominent examples of these high alert medications so listeners truly understand the gravity of the potential risks? What kind of drugs are we talking about?
Certainly. The ISMP high alert list includes drug classes and specific medications that demand the utmost care. These include VAVI adrenergic agonists, like epinephrine, which drastically affects heart rate and blood pressure, general anesthetics, such as propofol, full-V antidysrhythmics, like lidocaine, and antithrombotic agents, such as heparin and warfarin, which can cause severe bleeding.
Okay, very powerful drugs.
Very. Also on this critical list are insulin, narcotics and opiates, neuromuscular blocking agents, which paralyze muscles used in surgery, and potassium chloride concentrate, which can cause fatal cardiac arrhythmias if misadministered, especially if given too quickly or undiluted. These are powerful medications where even a small error can have devastating, irreversible consequences, demanding extraordinary vigilance and multiple layers of safeguards.
And finally, when we talk about medication safety, we must consider special populations like pregnant women and older adults who have unique physiological needs that profoundly impact drug effects. How are they protected?
Yes, their physiological differences mean medications can affect them in distinct and often unpredictable ways, making specialized guidelines essential. For pregnancy, the 2015 Pregnancy and Lactation Labeling Rule provides a new, much more detailed system.
Replacing the old letter categories, A, B, C, X.
Exactly. It moves away from the older, simplistic A, B, C, D, X categories, instead offering a more nuanced documentation of known or potential maternal, fetal, and infant adverse reactions, as well as specific information for lactation. This aims for better-informed, evidence-based prescribing decisions during pregnancy and breastfeeding. It's still in a transition period, so you may see both systems for a while on older drugs.
Okay, that's helpful. And for older adults, there's a widely recognized set of criteria for medication safety, isn't there? The Beers list.
That would be the American Geriatric Society Beers criteria. This is an important, regularly updated list of medications that are generally considered potentially inappropriate or best avoided in older adults, or specifically in those with certain diseases, due to a significantly higher risk of adverse effects such as confusion, falls, sedation, and even mortality.
So it helps doctors choose safer options.
Precisely. It serves as a vital safety measure, guiding prescribers away from potentially harmful drugs for this vulnerable population. We'll actually delve into the Beers criteria in much more detail in a later chapter, Chapter 5, but its importance as a safety benchmark is immense and worth mentioning here.
This has been an incredibly comprehensive look at the intricate world of pharmacology and drug safety, revealing the countless layers of protection in place. For our listeners who want to deepen their understanding, whether they're healthcare students, patients, or just highly curious, what are some truly effective strategies for mastering drug knowledge and confidently applying it? How can you learn this stuff?
That's a great question. One of the most effective strategies, as we discussed, is to truly concentrate on therapeutic classifications and their prototypes.
Focus on the main example drug.
Exactly. Instead of trying to memorize hundreds of individual drugs, understand a prototype, say, morphine for opioid analgesics. If you grasp its mechanism of action, its main indications, and its common adverse effects, you've gained a foundational understanding that applies to a whole family of related drugs, making future learning far more efficient.
So, comparing a new drug to a known prototype or similar drug really helps with retention and predictive power. What else can listeners do to make this knowledge stick?
Try to understand the mechanism of action, that is, how a drug actually acts in the body at a cellular or physiological level. This understanding is profoundly powerful as it allows you to predict both its intended therapeutic effects and its potential adverse effects.
If you know how it works.
You can anticipate what it will do, aiding in both prevention of harm and early detection of issues. Also, focus your study efforts on the major characteristics: the primary indications for use, the most common and serious adverse effects, key contraindications when not to use it, and any related nursing or patient care needs. These are the high-yield areas. Don't get lost in tiny details at first.
It goes without saying, but relying on memory alone for dosages or specific details about drug interactions is probably not the best idea, right? Especially with so many drugs.
Absolutely not. Memory is notoriously unreliable, especially for precise dosage ranges and complex interactions. Always keep an authoritative, up-to-date drug reference readily available. Healthcare professionals today have immediate access to robust computerized databases like the Lippincott Nursing Drug Guide, UpToDate, the American Hospital Formulary Service, or Drug Facts and Comparison.
Lots of resources.
Yes, which provide current evidence-based information at their fingertips. For patients, reliable online resources from trusted sources like the FDA or NIH, or simply asking your pharmacist, are invaluable. Don't guess. Look it up.
And for active learning, beyond just reading, what really helps cement this knowledge? How do you make it yours?
Active engagement is key. Don't just passively consume information. Use your own words when taking notes or writing drug information cards. Make flashcards. Even writing directly in your textbooks, highlighting and annotating, forces you to process the information more deeply. The mental effort involved in rephrasing and summarizing significantly helps with both initial learning and long-term retention and practical application.
And finally, rehearsing application. That sounds like a great way to prepare for real-world scenarios, whether you're a student or just thinking critically about your own health, like role-playing it in your head.
It is, and it's transformative for understanding. Ask yourself what-if questions about patient care scenarios. For example, what if I have a patient who is receiving this drug? What must I specifically do to safely administer it? What must I assess before giving it? And what must I meticulously observe afterward? What if my patient is an elderly person who might metabolize drugs differently, or a child where dosages are weight-based? Proactively thinking through these scenarios helps you integrate and apply your knowledge, preparing you for clinical practice or simply for more informed conversations with your healthcare providers. It makes the knowledge practical. Hashtag outro.
Wow. We've covered a vast landscape today. From the ancient origins and cutting-edge biotechnology that bring us our medicines, through the complex systems of naming and classification, to the rigorous regulatory approval processes, and finally, the multi-layered safeguards implemented at the point of care. We've truly seen how dynamic the field of pharmacology is, constantly evolving in its relentless quest for better safety and efficacy.
And every single piece of information we've discussed today, from understanding the difference between generic and trade names to the intricate details of high-alert medications and the crucial do not use abbreviation list, is ultimately about protecting you, the patient, and empowering you as a knowledgeable healthcare consumer. This is a system built with your well-being at its absolute core.
So what does this all mean for you? We've seen how much effort, legislation, and innovation goes into making medications safe and effective. Considering the incredible complexity and the persistent potential for human error, what more do you think could be done to achieve truly zero preventable medication errors?
That's a tough one.
What role do you, as a patient or loved one, play in this ongoing quest for perfect safety, asking questions and understanding the answers?
It's a provocative question for all of us, a call to continued vigilance and curiosity. We encourage you to take the insights from this deep dive, look up your own medications, understand their generic and trade names, know why you're taking them.
Be an active participant.
Exactly. And don't hesitate to ask more questions of your healthcare providers, drawing on the authoritative sources we've mentioned today. Empowering yourself with knowledge is a crucial step in your own safety journey.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into pharmacology. We hope you feel a little more well-informed and a lot more curious about the medicines that shape our lives.